Hello, thanks for joining me in this short video about a subject that's of interest to all bizarre magicians, cold reading. I got the idea for this video after coming across an interview or a talk between David Frost and the late great Orson Wells, who was actually very interested in magic. And the subject he's talking about is cold reading, and it's fascinating really. He's very insightful about it, and it's a good explanation of what cold reading is and how he used it one time. And well, we'll talk about it afterwards, but first let's look at the video.
I once, I'm a magician, and I got interested in mind reading and fortune telling, fake fortune telling, and I got to know a lot of old fakes who had retired as millionaires, and they told me their secrets, how you do it. They have things that are called cold readings.
Oh, what's that?
A cold reading is you warm up the sucker by telling him things that he says, how could he ever know that, you see? You say, between the ages of 13 and 15, you had a great change came in your life. But that happens in everybody's life. But he says, he came in and told me things I already see. You've got a scar on your knee. Everybody fell down and has a scar on their knee. Those are cold readings, you see?
I have a scar on my knee.
Sure
How
you
did
do.
you know that?
Yeah, you see? Just something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
Well, now, the point about this is that after they're warmed up, they're amazed by this knee bit and the rest of it, they start telling you. Because you just say, is it, and you see from their face it is or it isn't, and then you tell it back and they say, how did he do it, you see? So I was bored. I was playing in Kansas City with Catherine Cornell one time, and we didn't have any matinee on Wednesday, so I hired a room and put Dr. Swami fortune teller, $2 readings. And for the whole day they came in, and each one, because I felt guilty about it at the end, I said, I'm not going to take your money. Because I couldn't have really taken it. For a whole day, I was a fortune teller, faking. But then there began to happen to me the thing that does happen to fortune tellers, and which is the occupational disease of fraudulent fortune tellers. And they have a name for it. It's called becoming a shut-eye. And a shut-eye in the argot of these crooks is the fellow who begins to believe himself. You see, and you make these wild guesses. One of them explained to me, he says, supposing you're a night clerk in a hotel, and when you get the job, first of all, a fellow comes in, wants a single room, you look at how good his luggage is, how good are his shoes, and you tell him there's a room in the court, there's no room, or yes, sir, depending on various pieces of evidence. He says, you've been a night clerk long enough, you glance, and you tell him. You've been a night clerk a little longer, and you don't have to look. You've seen it, but the computer in here has made all of those deductions without your being conscious of it. So the mind reader gets so that he, without thinking, does that, and then they say it's true. And a woman came in to me at the end of my career as a fraudulent fortune teller in a bright print dress, and sat down looking perfectly all right, and I said, you've lost your husband last week. And she burst into tears. She had. And then I quit.
That was terrible.
Yes, it's one of those things. Undoubtedly, it's not psychic. Undoubtedly, there was evidence of a tragedy. There was all kinds of things that went into the computer and got processed without me crookedly thinking what I'm going to say to her. And that's how it works, I think.
That's fascinating. And you get sort of 5 spooky premonitions a year.
Like that, and then, yes, I do. And I'm sure they're all spooky like that in some kind of funny way. I suppose I looked at Una and said, she's just, Una is exactly the girl that would be happy with Charlie, I suppose. And instead of thinking, maybe you'll meet him, what did I lose? I said, you're going to marry him. And she did.
Very, very interesting and insightful that. Of course, we all cold read, usually without even know what we're doing or that we're doing it. And the example that Orson Wells gives is the night porter at the hotel, looking at people, reading them and thinking, well, can they afford this, what the sort of client they are, and then eventually that becomes ingrained and they just do it quite naturally without even thinking about it. but we all do that. It's a very, very human trait. That's cold reading. I'm not talking, and of course he also mentions these fishing things that they say, or with vague things, you know, or you had a scar on your knee and that sort of thing. And also when the psychics, so-called psychics, will, I can get someone, the name begins with an S, and without actually, and someone will then say, oh, do you mean Susan or Sam, whatever. So that's really interesting. And we need to know about these things, not necessarily for when we are doing tarot readings, but it can help us throughout all our bizarre performances. And there was quite a time when Gordon, Ashley and myself, we would actually book ourselves a couple of tables at psychic fairs and go to the psychic fairs and do our readings. And of course we're going right into the very heart of the shut-eye community. People actually believe what they're doing, or certainly claim to. I'm not sure they all actually do, but the audience there is different than the audience we get at our corporate evenings, because the people going to the psychic fairs were very, very much believers. They wanted to believe, they wanted to be told something, they were going with questions. At a corporate event it's different. Certainly we're there to entertain, and you must never forget that when you're doing your performances and your readings. You're actually, corporately, you're paid to entertain people, not to solve their problems. But so there is a difference. But it was very interesting going into the world of the shut-eyes at the psychic fairs, and Gordon and I would be doing perhaps rune readings or tarot, and we would use some of the techniques, for instance in my book, for example in my book Trickery for Tarot Readers, just little things, not doing an effect but using the techniques to enhance the reading. For example, I might get the person to pick unseen a tarot card, and we'd put it in front, and I'd do a little bit of sort of cold reading, and then I would say I'm getting the impression that the card you would have picked would be, for instance, I don't know, any of the major arcana would be such and such, and that would be the one you would pick, because that's what I'm getting the feeling of. And of course they'd turn the card over and it would be that card, and we know, you know, I don't need to tell you how we do that. So that was an interesting foray into the world of the shut-eye. Interestingly, talking about readings, one of the easiest people I ever had to do a reading for was a chap at a corporate event, and he come up and he said, right, you do this tarot reading. He said, I'm not going to tell you, I know all about cold reading, I'm not going to tell you anything. And just sat there. Well, that was a gift, wasn't it? Because told me exactly what sort of person he was and the way that he thought, which I was able to feed back to him. And before long, he was just got it hook, line and sinker, just reeled him in. To give you an example of a couple of times I've used cold readings when I'm was doing corporate dues, was well, the first one I'll say about, I used to do an effect, Lee Earl effect, the musing box, where you have a story about a little girl whose favourite toy was this little music box. Anyway, she gets killed, she gets run over and the box gets smashed, and the father, which I start off in the third person, but during the story I gradually move it so it was me, buys another replica music box so he can remember his daughter. And while I'm telling the story, I'm showing them this, and then I'm opening the box and you're hearing it play a little tune and closing the box again. And I say that I know that I can see my daughter again because it's actually fake music, not a real music box. It's empty, and you show it, and the box that's been making the tunes is actually empty. Lovely little effect. Anyway, I was doing this at a corporate do, and afterwards a lady came up to me with her friend tightly clutching her hand, really intense looking, and she said, "Can I speak to you?" Immediately I thought, this lady has lost a daughter, lost a child, most likely a little girl, and you've got to handle that really sensitively. And I said to her, "Yes, certainly, sit down." And they both sat down. I said, "You've lost a child, haven't you?" She said, "Oh, yes." I said, "A little girl?" "Yes, yes." It's partly guesswork, but also cold reading. And I said, "Don't worry, she's here with you now. She's just there." I said, "And she wants you to know that she's happy, everything's fine, she still loves you and she knows you love her, and she's looking forward to seeing you in the spirit world. For her it won't be long, because time will go quickly. For you, of course, it'll be your lifetime, but eventually we'll be reunited." On the relief on this woman's face, it was just palpable. "Oh, thank you very much." And she went away feeling a lot better. There was other things I said to her as well, but that was the gist of it. And but another example was when I was actually doing tarot reading in a nightclub in Birmingham. I used to do 8 till 10 at a pub called the Longboat in the city centre. Then I'd just pop couple of streets up into a nightclub called the Church, and I'd do from like 8 to 10 at the pub, and then 10 till midnight at the nightclub. And anyway, there's a little corner. I mean, it's a very loud place, but I used to find a little corner and create my own little atmosphere, and people would come to me at the table and I'd do a reading. And this young lad, I say young, he was in his early 20s, came up, and I could see he was really sort of hesitant and worried. And I started doing a reading, and I could see he was really, really quite worried about something. So I stopped the reading. I said, "Right," I said, "the cards are telling me there's something really troubling you. Would you like to tell me about it?" And he, "Oh yes, please." And it turned out that a couple of years before, after he'd finished university, he was travelling, and he was in Australia, and there was a group of people at some hostel or something, and someone there had got tarot cards, and they started doing tarot readings for people. And this person actually told the lad that he was going to die in a fire, and quite soon. I mean, I can't believe how anyone would actually think of saying that to someone. Anyway, he'd taken it all in, and he'd gone off, and it had just been absolutely playing on his mind, understandably, since. So I said to him, I said, "Right, let's do another reading." So I got him to shuffle the cards, laid the cards out, and I said to him that, I said, "No," I said, "I can see exactly what's happened here. When you were away, it was the first time you was away from home for such a long time." Well, that would be, Australia, young lad, that'd be pretty obvious. And I said, "You were feeling homesick, weren't you?" And he said, "Oh, yes, yes." Well, there you go again, that's pretty obvious. I said, "And what that person did is picked up on that emotion, but they wrongly interpreted it. What that was just the emotion of you feeling homesick." I said, "We've just take what," I shuffled the cards again, turned face down, take a card, took the card, put it down, face down in front of her. I said, "Right, this is what your future is. Turn the card over." So he turned the card over, and it was the World, which is a real lucky fortune, positive card. And so I gave him a reading on that. His demeanour brightened straight away, and he went off, floating on air rather than being down and upset and worried. So that's how you can use cold reading. So I'm going to do something a bit different now. I'm going to give you some homework. What I want you to do is the next time you're out and about in public, waiting somewhere, it could be anywhere, bus stop, airport, station, anywhere, you're just sat there waiting, don't get your phone out, just sit there and watch people. Just people watch. It is brilliant training for cold reading. Look round, look at people. Look at that person over there. What do I like the look of them? They're not. Why? What's that people doing? Are that couple that you see, are they long-time partners? Have they just met? You know, look at the way, if they, you know, the way they're talking to each other, looking at each other. Absorb all this and think about it and file it away. And as Orson Wells said, it goes into the computer and one day it can just come back. It's a great way of passing the time, and a lot better than just looking at your phone, and it's very, very useful. Anyway, just a few thoughts on cold reading, and I hope you enjoyed listening to Orson Wells, and hope this little video has been useful to you. So, thanks for watching from me, the Black Hart.